In 2001, a scratched Lincoln 1 cent slips through a cashier's hand, unnoticed but waiting. In 1970, a Roosevelt dime rings different, lighter, like it knows a secret. In 1984, a Jefferson nickel disappears from a pocket and reappears decades later. 3 coins, 3 years, one hidden connection no collector talks about. Each coin passed through a moment history forgot. A factory error no one reported. A silent recall that never made the news. A change in metal that changed everything. The penny was minted during chaos. The dime during a quiet government shift. The nickel during an experiment that never happened. Individually, they're worth pocket change. Together, they tell a story worth millions. Collectors chased myths while the truth sat in drawers. One man noticed the dates lining up. Another noticed the weight didn't match the books. Then the patterns started repeating worldwide. Banks denied it. Mints stayed silent. But these 3 coins keep resurfacing together. And once you see why, you'll never look at loose change the same way. The history of the Lincoln cent in 2001 flows out of a lineage that began in 1909, when the coin was first introduced to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And by the time collectors reached the early years of the 21st century, the Lincoln cent had already become one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. And the 2001 issue represents a continuation of the memorial reverse era that began in 1959, when the wheat reverse was replaced with Frank Gasparo's depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, a design chosen to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the original Lincoln cent, and to reflect modern American symbolism and architecture. And as the United States Mint carried the coinage program into 2001, the cent remained an essential part of American commerce, even though inflation had long eroded the purchasing power of 1 cent. Yet public demand and vending machine standards kept the coin in continuous production. The 2001 Lincoln cent was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with the Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and the Denver coins bearing the familiar D mint mark. Both facilities produced massive quantities as the nation continued to rely on billions of cents in circulation, and the plancher composition remained the copper-plated zinc alloy first introduced in 1982 with a 975% zinc core and a 25% copper, coating a change originally made to reduce production costs when rising copper prices. Made the older bronze composition too expensive in 2001, this alloy was still the standard, and it defined the look and feel of all memorial cents of the period. Collectors note that the 2001 Lincoln cent continues the Victor David Brenner obverse portrait, which had become an American icon featuring Lincoln's right-facing bust, that had remained virtually unchanged for nearly a century, preserving the strong historical continuity of the series. And while the design stayed consistent year after year, the dies themselves were renewed annually, which means subtle strike differences, luster variations, and minor imperfections can be seen under magnification, giving collectors points of interest for attribution and study. During 2001, the United States Mint was also modernizing many of its processes with improved die preparation methods, better quality control, and more efficient high-speed presses, all of which influenced the sharpness and consistency of the strikes found. On 2001 cents, though, circulation strikes typically show average detail due to mass production, die fatigue, and the nature of zinc planchets. The year also saw ongoing discussion among numismatists about whether the cent should remain in production at all, as many argued that the cost to make the coin was approaching or surpassing its face value, while others insisted that eliminating the cent would cause price rounding and public inconvenience, so the mint continued, striking billions of them. And this debate, which has resurfaced regularly throughout the decades, helps frame the 2001 coin as a representative of an era when the cent was both an indispensable yet controversial part of the monetary system among collectors. The 2001 Lincoln cent does not usually carry significant rarity, but high-grade mint state examples, especially from Denver, can show excellent brightness and copper brilliance, making them visually appealing, and certain die varieties, such as minor die cracks, die chips, and plating blisters, attract attention from specialists who enjoy cataloging small anomalies created during the striking process. The year 2001 also sits near the end of the memorial reverse period, which would conclude in 2008 before the transition to the four-part 2009 bicentennial series and the subsequent Union Shield reverse introduced in 2010. So the 2001 issue stands as one of the late memorial cents, produced in large numbers during a time when the mint had not yet begun its redesign campaign, and this gives the coin an identity closely tied to the familiar long-running series that generations of Americans carried in their pockets. School children saved in jars and hobbyists searched through in rolls for interesting varieties in a broader historical context. The Lincoln cent of 2001 reflects the economic environment of the United States at the time, including the growing role of electronic transactions, which had begun reducing the frequency of cash usage even before the digital age fully matured. But despite these shifts, the cent remained culturally embedded and widely circulated, making the 2001 issue an everyday artifact of American life, one that connected the past to the present through its enduring portrait of Lincoln and its place in the numismatic timeline. And by examining the 2001 cent, collectors gain insight not only into mint operations, but also into public habits, historical continuity, and the evolving conversations about the future of low-denomination coinage, all of which make the 2001 Lincoln cent far more than a simple copper-coated coin, as it represents a living thread running through more than a century of American monetary and cultural history. As the story of the 2001 Lincoln cent continues, it is important to understand how this coin reflects not just numismatics, but the technological, political, and cultural climate of the United States. At the start of the 21st century, the mint was undergoing steady modernization with computer-assisted engraving and improved planche preparation techniques, which influenced the consistency of the 2001 strikes. Although high-speed production always introduced some variation, especially on copper-plated zinc planches that were prone to plating bubbles and small fissures during the manufacturing process. These characteristics helped create the minor varieties that collectors hunt for in 2001. Rolls today, including small die cracks raised areas, near the date or mint mark, and other anomalies that tell the story of the dies used that year. The Lincoln cent of 2001 was also produced during a time when coinage demand fluctuated rapidly due to shifts in consumer behavior after the rise of debit cards, credit cards, and early online shopping, yet the cent remained widely needed for physical transactions, and businesses continued to request bulk quantities from the Federal Reserve, ensuring that both the Philadelphia and Denver mints ran at high capacity for significant portions of the year. The mint also released annual reports that discussed cost structures, metal prices, and production efficiency, which helps modern collectors understand why the copper-plated zinc composition stayed in place through 2001. Even though many argued for the return to the more traditional bronze alloy or for eliminating the cent entirely, the cost to produce the coin hovered near the face value and occasionally exceeded it, sparking debate that still continues today about whether the cent should be retired. But in 2001, the coin still represented an essential anchor in pricing and economic psychology, and many Americans viewed the cent as a symbol of thrift savings and everyday commerce. The numismatic community in 2001 was also significantly influenced by the rise of the Internet, which began transforming how collectors bought, sold, traded, and researched coins online. Auction platforms expanded collector markets and allowed people to acquire high-grade 2001 Lincoln cents, certified by leading grading services without needing to attend in-person shows. This shift changed the distribution of new coinage, as collectors were more informed about population reports, strike quality trends, and production totals than ever before, and it resulted in heightened interest in searching 2001 rolls for potential mint state gems, especially from Denver. which was known for producing some of the higher luster coins that year. The historical arc of the Lincoln cent also plays a key role, as the 2001 issue stands just 8 years before the massive redesign effort that would begin in 2009, when the United States honored the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent itself by offering 4 commemorative reverse designs representing Lincoln's early life, his formative years, his professional rise, and his presidency. Collectors looking back at 2001 see it as part of the final era of the long-running memorial reverse, which itself first appeared in 1959, replacing the famous wheat ears reverse of 1909 to 1958 and celebrating the Lincoln Memorial as a national icon. The memorial design was in use for nearly half a century, and coins from 2001 represent its mature phase, where die engraving techniques had become refined enough that even circulation strikes often show clear lines of the memorial steps, Lincoln's seated statue, and sharply outlined inscriptions. Another key aspect of the 2001 Lincoln cent is the role it played in coin collecting habits of the early 21st century, as many collectors, particularly younger hobbyists, actively searched through pocket change and bank rolls for red, uncirculated examples and minor die varieties. During this period, many educational coin programs promoted the Lincoln cent as an entry point into the hobby because of its affordability, long history, and wide availability. The story of the 1970 Roosevelt dime begins with the legacy of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whose leadership during the Great Depression and World War II made him one of the most influential figures in American history. After his passing in 1945, the United States Mint sought an appropriate way to honor his contributions and chose to redesign the 10-cent coin, replacing the Mercury dime that had been in circulation since 1916. The new design, created by chief engraver John R. Sinek, featured a portrait of Roosevelt on the obverse symbolizing strength, leadership, and the nation's gratitude, and on the reverse the torch flanked by an olive branch and oak branch representing liberty, peace, and strength. As the years passed, the Roosevelt dime became a stable part of American coinage, and by 1970, the coin had already completed 24 years of continuous production. The 1970 dime came at a time when the United States Mint was experimenting with new production methods and responding to the ongoing changes in the economy, including increasing coin demand and the aftermath of the 1965 Coinage Act, which replaced silver coins with clad copper-nickel versions. The 1970 dime followed the clad composition introduced in 1965, consisting of a pure copper core with outer layers of copper-nickel, providing durability and a silvery appearance while being cost-efficient for national coin production. The production of the Roosevelt dime in 1970 occurred at 2 major facilities: the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Although the Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, as was typical for the time, collector interest in the 1970 dime is often tied to the background of minting practices during the late 1960s and early 1970s, a period marked by increased coin collecting enthusiasm that had reached a peak in earlier years but continued to influence the market as hobbyists searched for varieties, errors, and unique pieces from modern mint runs. The 1970 dimes were produced in large numbers, making most regular circulation strikes common, but certain features such as strike quality, die fatigue, and mint made errors contribute to the appeal for collectors today. During this era, the Mint continued refining its equipment and production processes as high-speed machinery became the standard for mass coinage. The dies used to strike the 1970 dimes went through heavy workloads, sometimes leading to minor imperfections, such as die cracks off center strikes and weak strikes, which can be found on surviving examples. These small variations spark collector interest because they offer a glimpse into the working conditions and technical adjustments of the mint. At the time, error coins from the 1970 production period, such as broad strikes clipped planchets or double die-obverse or reverse pieces if discovered, can command notable premiums in the market, especially when preserved in high grades. The design of the Roosevelt dime had remained unchanged since its introduction, and by 1970, the coin was seen as an iconic part of the nation's circulating currency. The obverse still featured the familiar left-facing portrait of Roosevelt with the inscription, "Liberty," placed prominently along the rim, and "In God We Trust" positioned below his chin. The mint date 1970 appeared in its usual location near the bottom, while the reverse continued to showcase the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, along with the inscriptions. United States of America, a pluribus unum, and one dime. This consistent design helped anchor the dime's identity during a time when other denominations were undergoing or soon would undergo redesigns and commemorative issues. The historical context of the early 1970s also shaped the meaning of the Roosevelt dime. The United States was transitioning socially, politically, and economically. The ending years of the Vietnam War inflation concerns and shifting national priorities marked the period, yet the dime remained a simple, everyday object that connected generations. As Americans carried and used these coins in daily commerce, the Roosevelt dime served as a small reminder of the nation's past leadership and enduring values. The coin's practicality made it essential in vending machines, payphones, and everyday transactions, making the 1970 issue a significant part of millions of lives. For collectors today, the 1970 Roosevelt dime carries importance not because it is rare, but because it represents the steady production of U.S. coinage during a transitional era. Numismatists often examine these coins for high-grade examples graded by professional services such as PCGS and NGC, where coins in mint, state 67 or 68, can be considered exceptional due to the challenges of achieving perfect surfaces on mass-produced clad coinage. The clad layers easily pick up scratches and scuffs, so finding a pristine, untouched example from 1970 can be surprisingly difficult, which adds value and desirability for serious collectors. The 1970 dime also holds interest for those who study minting history. The period saw experiments and refinements in striking pressure, die alignment, and planchet preparation, which means coins from this year sometimes display stronger than average details or unusually sharp edges. The mint was becoming more advanced in quality control, yet millions of coins still left the facilities with minor imperfections, revealing the gradual evolution of American coinage technology. Collectors who enjoy exploring the technical side of minting find the 1970 dime an excellent case study in understanding how modern clad coins matured over the decade. Beyond the physical coin, the story of the 1970 Roosevelt dime is also a story about the legacy of Roosevelt himself. Born in 1882, he rose from a privileged background to become a champion of the common person, leading the nation through some of its darkest times. His New Deal programs transformed the economic landscape, providing relief, recovery, and reform. His leadership during World War II united the country at a time of global uncertainty. The decision to place his image on the dime was not only a tribute to his presidency, but specifically to honor his connection to the March of Dimes, a fundraising campaign dedicated to fighting polio, a disease Roosevelt himself battled throughout his life. This personal connection has forever tied the dime to themes of resilience, hope, and national unity. As the video progresses, viewers can explore how the Roosevelt dime maintained its place in everyday commerce during 1970, a time when cash transactions were the backbone of the American economy. Electronic payments, credit cards, and digital devices had not yet transformed spending habits, so coins like the dime were essential in countless daily moments, whether buying a newspaper, paying for parking, or using a vending machine. The dime played a vital role in the rhythm of American life. The 1970 dime is therefore more than just a collectible. It is a snapshot of a time when the smallest denominations mattered deeply in daily routines. Towards the end of the story, we can reflect on the continuing relevance of the Roosevelt dime. The design, introduced in 1946, remains in use today with only minor adjustments over the decades. The 1970 issue stands as one link in a long chain of production representing stability, consistency, and the enduring recognition of Roosevelt's contributions to the nation. For collectors, historians, and casual enthusiasts, the 1970 dime offers insight into minting change's economic history and the quiet but powerful role of coinage in society. Its large mintage ensures that examples are readily available, but the historical narrative behind it gives the coin depth that goes beyond its 10-cent face value. The Jefferson nickel of 1984 stands as one of the important yearly issues in the long-running series that began in 1938 when the United States Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a new design honoring Thomas Jefferson and displaying his iconic home Monticello. By the time 1984 arrived, the series had already existed for almost half a century and had seen changes in minting technology, metal shortages, wartime compositions, and gradual improvements in dyes and planchet preparation. The 1984 nickel belongs to the late modern era of the series, a period when the mint was focusing strongly on mass production, high-speed press efficiency, and improved quality control, as America entered a decade of economic change, technological advancement, and growing demand for circulating coinage. In 1984, the Mint produced Jefferson nickels at both Philadelphia and Denver, and each facility carried its own role in supplying the nation with coinage, used in daily transactions. Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark in this era because the P mint mark would not appear on nickels until 1980, and Denver coins used the D mint mark as usual. The nation's circulation needs during the early to mid-1980s were high due to population growth, nationwide commerce expansion, and the widespread use of coins in vending machines, transportation systems, and everyday retail purchases. The Mint responded by striking hundreds of millions of coins, creating the 1984 issue as one of the plentiful modern nickels, but still retaining collector interest because each year's strikes can differ subtly in die quality, luster strike sharpness, and the presence of die varieties. The design of the 1984 Jefferson nickel continued the long-running portraits created by sculptor Felix Schlag. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson with the inscriptions Liberty and the date placed carefully by the designer. Over the decades, dies were modified slightly for clarity and relief, and by the 1980s, the Mint had adopted a set of hubs that created a smoother and more modern appearance compared to earlier years. On the reverse volks, Monticello remained the central architectural element, with the inscriptions Monticello 5 cents, United States of America, and E pluribus unum. While the design had remained stable for decades, the details on each year's coins could vary because die wear, metal flow, and press pressure affected whether the steps at the base of Monticello struck fully. Collectors often search for full steps examples, and in 1984, these are particularly prized because strong, fully detailed strikes were less common than in some earlier years. The broader historical background of 1984 adds deeper meaning to the coin. The United States was in the middle of the Reagan era, an economic and political period characterized by shifting trade relationships, rapid technology growth, and changes in consumer habits. The Mint was upgrading processes using more modern presses and refining planchet preparation to ensure smoother surfaces and consistent weight. The copper-nickel alloy used since 1946 remained unchanged, with a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its familiar silver-gray appearance and durability. As America moved toward a more automated economy, the demands on coin production became more rigorous and The 1984 issue reflects a period when the mint focused on balancing speed and precision. Errors and varieties linked to the 1984 Jefferson nickel also attract interest from collectors. Modern minting sometimes produced off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes over polished dies, and occasional plancher flaws. The most important variety for the 1980s nickels arises from differences in the sharpness of Monticello's steps. Full steps. Examples from 1984 require that each stair line be clean, uninterrupted and sharply defined, a rare occurrence due to the heavy workload on the dies and the high volume of coins produced. These full steps coins are valuable because they represent the best strike quality of the year, and many collectors build sets aiming for only the highest grade coins. In circulation, the 1984 Jefferson nickel served ordinary American life. It passed through convenience stores, supermarkets, bus stations, payphones, and vending machines. Coins from this year witnessed everyday economic activity, and because nickel coins are durable, many 1984 nickels continued circulating for decades. Even today, they appear in pocket change, worn down from years of use, but still carrying the iconic portrait of Jefferson. Coin collectors often reference 1984 nickels as examples of mid-1980s mint output, revealing how production quality shifted subtly from year to year, even though casual users saw them simply as everyday currency. Over the course of its life, the 1984 nickel became part of the larger narrative of the Jefferson series, which remained unchanged until the Westward Journey redesigns of 2004 and 2005, and finally the modern obverse redesign in 2006. That makes the 1984 issue a snapshot of the classic Schlag design before the mint made major updates. It represents stability, tradition, and continuity in American coinage. For collectors who enjoy studying minting history, die changes, and strike quality, the 1984 Jefferson nickel offers a rich opportunity to explore the late 20th century mint environment, as well as the long-running evolution of one of America's most familiar coins. The story of the 1984 Jefferson nickel also connects to the internal structure of the United States Mint during the early 1980s, when the nation was experiencing evolving economic pressures. The mint was responsible for maintaining stability in the coin supply, and by 1984, the demand for usable circulating coinage had reached a high point due to expanding commercial activity and increasing dependence on small denomination coins. Although paper money handled larger transactions, the nickel, along with the penny and quarter, became essential for automated systems and everyday retail purchases. The Mint's operations in Philadelphia and Denver had to coordinate production schedules, balance metal inventories, and maintain high output while reducing waste because copper and nickel costs fluctuated due to global market conditions. Each 1984 Jefferson nickel began as a blank slug of copper-nickel alloy punched from a rolled sheet. These blanks underwent annealing cleaning and upset milling to form a raised rim before entering the coining presses. During 1984, the Mint used high-speed Schuler presses capable of producing tens of thousands of coins per hour, but this speed came with challenges. Dies wore rapidly, and press operators constantly monitored the machines to identify die fatigue or weakening details in the design. As a result, some 1984 nickels show sharp, bold features, while others appear soft or dull depending on the condition of the die at the time of striking. This variety fascinates collectors because coins from the same year can appear vastly different in sharpness and luster. The social climate of 1984 enhances the significance of the coin as well. America was moving further into the digital age, but still relied heavily on physical currency for millions of daily interactions. Credit cards were gaining popularity, but were not yet common among average households, meaning coins like the 1984 nickel played a central role in commerce. Children used them for arcade games and school lunches, adults used them for parking meters, bus fares, and vending machines, and workers used them for toll booths and payphones. Every 1984 nickel became part of the lived experience of people across the country and circulated through countless hands before being saved by collectors or worn nearly flat through years of use.